Ready? Be louder, volume. All right. Just first area of business. Did somebody lose? We just found this in the hallway. Your check if you got your key card. Who is it?
Is your last name Poole?
Cool.
That was a good one. He's surprised he's even missed.
All right. Okay, well, speak up. All right, everybody. Good morning. I'm Barbara Jasinski, your president, and I call the March 2025 town hall meeting to order. All of you got an agenda, and I'd like to make a motion or have somebody make a motion to accept the agenda as written.
I'll make a motion. Second. Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. First, let me introduce the board for any new people. We have, not only our board members here, but we have a new PCAM partner. And we have Phil Bernardes, who's our secretary, Drew Showers, who is our member at large, Bill Brown, our treasurer, and Glenn Higby, our vice president. We'd also like to welcome the new property manager from PCAM, Ms. Marcia Garrett. Welcome. And of course, I think all of you know Jen. Jen is here to help and assist us televising this meeting. So we really appreciate PCAM stepping up and becoming our partners here. Marcia, who's recently joined us because Ashley has moved. So we welcome Marcia. And Marcia, do you want to say a few words and she said, don't put me on the spot. Yeah.
I've been in the leadership field for about 15 years, mainly on site. I was down in Virginia, managing a community there, older community, on site. And then before that, I was in Hilton Head, South Carolina. The association had gone through a $6 million lawsuit from the developers. So that kept me busy for about 4 years. Families in Virginia brought me back to Virginia. Been coming here for about the last 3 years and decided to make the move last October. So I'm unofficial Delaware. I'm currently working with the board with all of the voters. Always available. Reach out.
Thank you, Marcia. Welcome aboard. Yep. Phil, can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Everybody should have gotten a copy of the November 16, 2024 community minutes that was sent out by email. Are there any comments, questions, corrections that need to be made? Not seeing any, I make a motion to accept the minutes from the November 16, 2024 community meeting session.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. Thank you. So that's business. So one more business thing. As always, we follow Robert's rules. I've got my little book and I got my little mallet. The president, as chair, I get to call on everybody. So if, for the presenters, also people asking questions and anybody that has opinion, you got to wait till I call on you and then you can speak and be recognized by the chair. We have, everybody's pretty familiar with that. Our town hall meetings are usually informational meetings. And this year we have also added a guest speaker, which I think all of you are aware of. First, we will present some of the first quarter activities and things that we're working on in 2025. And then we will have a presentation by Todd Fritzman and from Envirotech, who will be, and any questions after that, if we have some things that if we haven't been able to get to, we'll have an open discussion. So we're trying to move it along. Todd will be with us shortly. But before we start, as always, I have some housekeeping things. However, my list is short this time, which is good. Just a reminder that it's spring coming on and our winter greening of our houses has happened. So I'd like everybody to start scheduling their power washing. we're responsible for that. We also responsible for mulching and edging our gardens and also turning on our irrigation systems. A lot of the contractors are getting booked, so I would suggest everybody sort of schedule in before you start getting some violation notices out there. So I know my house we need to do ours, so we got to get in the schedule. With the snow ending and the winter months, heading away from us, we now have a lot of people getting out there and doing their spring exercising. So they're riding bikes, they're walking. Not always on the sidewalks, they're walking in the streets, they're running in the streets. So we really, once again, need to have not only us, but our guests be really careful out there and make sure we follow the 22 miles an hour out there. Make sure we stop at the stop signs, let's not, let's be careful there. And of course, any of the violators that do not follow the do not enter sign at, on Herring Reach, they will be reported. So please, let's follow the signs and let's keep our community safe. And I thank you for that. Now let's figure out what's happening or what's been happening in the community. So we're going to start off with Glenn.
You're gonna do the treasurer's report?
Oh, yeah, I jumped. Treasurer's breast.
For those of you, I am following,
I need my notes. It says. Forgot it. I know. 3 years,
after,
5 years. Forget
I'm good. The treasurer's report for Pointe Homeowners Association as of February 28th, 2025 is as follows. The operating fund balance is $43,000, $43,008. The operating reserve fund balance is $76,812. The long-term reserve fund balance is $419,395. The social committee fund balance is $6,454. The total balance of all Bay Pointe's funds are $454,669. Of note, the year-to-date operational fund balance surplus is $15,609. Of that surplus, $11,360 is budgeted by the board to be rolled forward into the operational reserve fund for future emergencies. Of note, the year-to-date interest income for the operational reserve fund is $377. The year-to-date interest income for the long-term reserve fund is $2,599. The long-term reserve fund currently has an unrealized loss of $599. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Bill. All righty, now,
Now I'll go.
Glenn start.
5 short bullets to share with you about grounds and other things going on. The Tidewater Utilities contractor has installed the water interconnection. Thank you for watching the flagman out there and safely getting in and out. Restoration will happen not quickly because they had such a big hole. Obviously, things are going to settle a little bit, but they will be responsible for restoration. Envirotech, the subcontractor, has moved in. He's not here now, but has started working on the ponds. All of our ponds will see some work at the inlet or the outlet. And what they're doing is they're pulling all the stonework, removing the sediment that's accumulated at the ends of those pipes over the last 15 years, and then resetting everything. This is a requirement pretty much by the state, and they've already started, and they're interesting people. I don't have a starting date for mowing, but obviously our lawns are starting to get green. I would expect this Passato will probably start mowing early next month, but I don't have a starting date yet. We did receive from Arbor Care, who is our forestry consultant. They did do a review of the entire development late this winter, and I just received their report. So I have all the information we need to start bringing contractors in to take a look at the identified trees, including the trimming behind some of your homes, that have grown out of the common area and are getting in close proximity to your houses. So if you see us walking behind your homes with a contractor-looking person or trucks out in the street, that's what we're doing right now. So we need to get 3 different quotes from them. And the last thing I have is dealing with the goose population. It seems to have been very large. It's not me. A lot of goose droppings. I read something this morning that a single goose can drop over a pound of droppings each day. And right now, it seems like the goose population is pretty low, but we were really inundated with them. We're looking into alternatives to deal with the population. But the most important thing here is, and you've received, something email, do not feed the geese. It's detrimental to them. It's certainly detrimental to us and to our property. And with the avian flu going on, we've had numerous dead birds showing up in our community and hundreds elsewhere. So I cannot emphasize enough, do not feed the geese. And that's it.
All righty, thank you. Colin, do I got you next? Colin, what?
Morning,
Morning.
I'm Colin Weber, the chairman of the Architecture Review Board. We have 5 members on the board. Bob Frank, Craig Stevens, Bill Shirey, and then a new member, Lenny Allman, has joined us this year. We hold our board meetings 3rd Wednesday of every month, 10 o'clock here in the clubhouse. And so far this year, our status 2025 is that 9 applications were approved in 2024 and carried over into 2025. 3 applications were approved in the last 2 months of 2024, and 3 applications have been approved this year. 5 projects have been completed and inspected in 2025, and 6 approved projects are in progress and will require final inspection. That's so that everything's moving along smoothly.
Thank you. Drew, you're up next.
Okay, facilities, let's do it. Lights are on this. Got some more, we have some pictures in there, the conference room's done, and here's all done, the closets are all done, and organized. We put new timers in the men's and the women's bathroom, save some energy, because sometimes the switches have been left on, the fans. So that's nice, and I redid some of the fluorescent lights in here, cleaned the lenses in the bathrooms. The lighting around the perimeter, I fixed some of the bulbs and replaced them. And we'll probably turn the lights out at night, probably at the end of April, just because of all the spiders and all that. And we will be getting the community center power wash. And that's it.
All right, we've got Jeannie.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Cummins, the Youth Communications Committee Chair, and I, with Kim Simpson and Sharon Marshall, make up the committee, and we have Janice Bond as volunteer. Real quickly, Kim is continuing to work on our sign out front and keeping that up to date. Janice is helping us keep our calendar on the website up to date. You'll notice that you're getting the social committee emails in a slightly new format. That's sort of a temporary thing until we have a new social committee chair who can help us design those emails for when the social committee would like them. So you'll still see the Let's Get Social banner at the top. Last time, it's the social committees in there. And then last but not least, we took the step of automatically enrolling everybody who's a member on the website into the weekly digest, which means that you will get an automatically generated, system generated email that gives you sort of a list of what's going on for the week. whether it's a social activity, an announcement, those types of things from the news feed. So you will likely be getting that. If you're not getting it, please see me. We'll figure out how to get it to you. You can unsubscribe from it if you choose. You just need to go into your member profile. Thanks.
Hard.
So-
Hard. Can I say something about slime?
Yeah.
So the winds are terrible. So the sign blows over. So if the sign is over and there's a sign on the sign that please do not operate this time. Makes up pay.
That's asking too much.
Thanks, Kim. Yep. Yeah. All right, we have Phil.
Okay, I just have one topic I've been asking Ray about. If you don't know, most of you not involved, you probably got mail with flyer in it. You guys recognize it?
Yeah.
Payment for that law like this. It's been our practice, board practice, not to respond to these types of emails for various reasons. Not the least of which is
Speak
the
up.
person that sent it didn't put their name to it, sent out anonymously. So that's one of the reasons. We're dealing with this one this time because it took a little bit of a different form.
Phil, can you talk a little louder?
Sure. We're dealing with this one because it took a little bit of a different form. My view is it's sarcastic. It's basically a lot of positive comments about our team, juxtaposition against certain pictures that I guess are meant to dispute what's really at the bottom. The other thing is, if you look at the return address, it says HOA update, Louis, Delaware, as a return address on there. I don't know what the intent was. It seems to us the intent is to confuse or mislead people because this obviously did not come. That's what we want everybody to know. Board, generally our preferred method of contacting everybody is by email. I think you all know that. There's only a few people I think get hard copies of anything in the mail, and we don't have email address that they choose not to give them. But if you do get anything in the mail from us, you're going to know it's from the board. Okay, it's going to have our names on it, our positions, or more than likely, signing as president of the HOA. There's not going to be any mistake. The reason we're bringing this up is not just we have an objection to the consent, but it actually did confuse some people in the community. We've had people contact us about, did you send this? What does it mean? You know, are we going to be spending more money or it's going to cost more money to do more landscaping, that sort of thing. We've also been told about conversations among residents. This came from the HOA. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody understands. If you get something in the mail, probably, will not get something in the mail. It'll come through on email only. It's going to be readily identifiable. Same with PCAM. You get something from PCAM, you know exactly as PCAM, what the logo is and whatnot. We'll have a letter with any attachment. They'll have the Bay Pointe logo at the top. And again, Barb's signature or someone else's signature on the bottom of the board. But if you do get anything that you don't know where it came from, by all means do it. Some other people in the community did reach out to us and we'll address it. Okay?
Thank you, Bill. All right, Bill.
Okay, the roads committee report. Ben Isaacson, road committee chair, is unavailable for today's meeting and had asked me to provide the community with a brief update of the committee's activities. James White assisted Ken in placing the snowplow and road stakes. As you know, we experienced 2 snowstorms that required utilizing a new vendor, Mid-Atlantic Builder. Ken reports that Mid-Atlantic did a fine and timely job plowing our streets. Our year-to-date snow removal costs are, you're not going to believe this, $2,957. The board budgeted 5 things. So we got a good job at it. And it was Ashley that our past PCAM manager who pushed that contract. It was interesting because in that contract embedded in it, and I caught it at the very end, was a $500 startup cost and a $500 shutdown cost. But they didn't charge us. So
Okay.
wherever Ashley is, well done. All right, the concrete contractor, TMS, will finish sealing the road at the end of Herring Reach Circle as soon as that final house construction is complete. We don't want to do any road work there with the concrete trucks coming up and down. Ken is following up on Paul Strauss's plan to develop an RFP to repair the damage to our sidewalks and curbs. And also, we're exploring major mill work and overlay road work for our roads. That concludes my report.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, I'm the last one as the acting social chair. We had our first kickoff meeting in 2025 in January. Ava Mulford is still our secretary. Ron Jasinski has volunteered to be acting treasurer with a little bit of a twist of an arm.
But you're doing a great
She's been doing a great job. And Kim Simpson and Sharon DeBernardis have stepped up to be an all-important extra hands on the social committee. So we're doing fine. We had at our meeting, we had a lot of people step up and claim their events. But there are a few events that we have not have claimed yet. So I'm going to put out a plea. One is the dinner dance that we did last year, this year in January. We need somebody to chair that. Ava and I have done it for a number of years, and we feel we need a little fresh new blood in there. So we were looking for Pearson to step up. We have one person on the committee, but we need usually a committee of 5. So if anybody's interested, please contact me or Ava, and we'll get John on the committee. Bingo nights were handled by the Shirees and Kim and Ed Simpson. We now need some people to take on hosting the bingo events. We do have callers, Ron Jasinski, Ed Simpson, Jay Hawthorne, and Pat Miles have, said they would call the letters or call the numbers, but we need somebody to organize it. People have to RSVP in. We do have tomorrow night, a bingo one that Kim and I are hosting. And the guys, Ed and Ron, are the callers. We need everybody to sort of RSVP if you're going to play bingo, because we need to have enough people to make it a big enough pot for the games, So please do that. And if anybody else would step up, that would be great. Unfortunately, our fitness instructor for the Aqua Fitness, Trisha, I believe, she could not put us into her calendar this year. I've looked around, trying to, find other people. We need somebody that is going to be insured and licensed. If anybody in the Aqua Fitness group that used to take part in it, if you want to step up and see if you can find somebody, that would really be great. But right now, we do not have anybody for Aqua Fitness this year in our pool. Lastly, I want to thank Jeannie, very much for keeping the Wednesday social event notice going. Yes, we do have to make it, back to the way it was and very enticing. But right at this point, I really appreciate that Jeannie has stepped in. We are getting the notices out. We do have a lot of upcoming events. We have a full calendar this year that everybody has stepped in, and there's going to be a lot of fun things going on. So please, everybody, check your Wednesdays for the events. And I also want to thank all volunteers that have stepped up and are handling some of the events this year and, their special events. Thank you very much. All right.
We are on schedule.
We are on schedule. We got Tom.
Ron is here. I'm just going to give you a quick introduction, if I may. Todd Bridgman is the founder and president of Envirotech Environmental Consulting, Inc. I will tell you that every time I met with him, I've learned something. And I'm sure that's going to be the outcome of his presentation today. Todd has a couple degrees in biology. His firm has been used by this development and other development and HOAs in the area for stormwater and other biological needs I think they've done a fabulous job over the years and continue to do that. They have a website, and I'll put this up here, that is full of flyers. Here's a perfect one that I brought along. For those of you that can't read it, it's titled Mistaken Kindness. Do not feed the birds. So it's not just Glenn's opinion. All right, but here's the expert with a flyer citing why feeding the geese is a bad thing for them and for us, for property owners. Please join me in welcoming Todd.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for the great introduction. My name is Todd Fritchman. I am a dual degree aquatic biologist in the state of Delaware sediment and stormwater management operator certified by DENREC. And my job for the last 30 years has been to design and implement subdivision, municipality, industrial site facility, school district, government agency facility, comprehensive stormwater management plans and maintenance programs. And been conducting those maintenance and management plans here since prior to the touring and prior to build out, and then all the way through. Primarily for your wet ponds, which I'll talk about briefly here this morning about what your wet ponds are really for in terms of your infrastructure, and also wetlands management in various locations around the perimeter of the community, conducting what's called integrated vegetation management programming for invasive species in your wetlands, and also monitoring hydrology and sea level rise and stormwater discharges and so forth. So it gets complicated, but I'm here to refine that and develop your understanding a little bit on those topics. So that's the goal and objective today, is to discuss your stormwater infrastructure and how they're maintained, and also the integrated vegetation management programming that is applied to your high and low marsh of your tidal wetlands that surround the perimeter of the community on the Herring Creek. Just a little quick overview of Envirotech while I have the opportunity. I'm here today to talk about our active environmental management service division, but we're a multi-divisional corporation. We also have a professional services division here that has done a lot of work in here for permitting of different projects that we've done, design for your walkway to the wetland by the gazebo there, your stormwater swale discharges that were failing, and we had to come in and design restabilization processes for that with geotextile fabric and riprap stone. We are currently using the professional environmental management service division also to correct multitudes of deficiencies. One here on this pond, I believe we've just done, where a stormwater stabilization area was failing and deficient. So we had to replace and repair the fabric and the stone. And then we're going to be systematically going through the wet ponds to remove the silt and sediment accumulations all the way from development build out. When the developer did his build out of the subdivision, you know, the black silt fences that go around your lots and all those BMPs to hold silt and sediment on your lot, they don't work 100%, and a lot of sediment soil runs off into the wet ponds. That's really what they're for during the active build out process, to capture and hold all of your impervious surface water runoff, including your silt, your sediment, your nutrients from your fertilizers, your pesticides, your herbicides, your grass clippings, dog feces, everything that travels with water in a mobile phase from your front lots and your rear lots down swales or into the street where the water falls, downgrade into drain inlets, catch basins, and then gets conveyed underground into the wet ponds where that water is stored for quantity quality treatment by the wet ponds ecology, the microorganisms, the algae, the plants, the bacteria, the things that live in the aquatic realm, in theory, decompose and break down the nutrients and the petroleum products, everything that runs in there. So what outfalls and leaves and goes out into Herring Creek is less toxic than when it ran into the pond, what they're supposed to do in theory. So we're doing a lot of activity on those wet ponds, so there will be just some disturbance in the neighborhood when we come in to do those projects. It's kind of like building a house. It looks ugly until it's done. So you don't want to judge the project on the. That scared me. I'm always used to something going wrong, so anyway, so heavy equipment will be coming in. There'll be teams of our particular team is a group of Amishmen that do all of our heavy equipment work and so forth. They're probably the best in the industry. It's just sometimes people aren't used to seeing Amishmen coming through the neighborhood and stuff. So it's a warm welcome to William King will be the person. If anyone has a question for him, please be easy. He'll talk. He likes to talk. Try to let him work. So they'll be coming in here in the next month and doing that. Corrective actions for your wet ponds and various structural components of the wet ponds. We are also a regional dealer distributorship, warranty center, and repair center for your Aquamaster fountains. That is the premier manufactured water quality management product on the planet, period. So our facilities, we have a lab in Rehoboth and in Lewis at Morton Electric Motors and at Envirotex facility to conduct the motor rebuilds, routine maintenance, and management to your fountains. And I'll talk more about them, what they're really for as we go through this presentation. We have an indoor air quality division for mold and asbestos remediation. We do conservation landscape planning and all the different things for sustainable community environmental services. So basically what we do is take the regulations, your stormwater management system, including your wet ponds, are regulated locally by the Sussex Conservation District. They are the delegated agency provided jurisdiction by the Department of Natural Resources Environmental Control, i.e. DENREC, who has statewide jurisdiction. They have given the local jurisdiction to the Conservation District. So they are the ones that have approved your plan set, your subdivision build out, your as-built approvals of your stormwater system. And then they are responsible for coming in on an annual basis to make sure that your routine maintenance is indeed being conducted, which we know that is fine because we stay proactively ahead of deficiencies, and we conduct the routine maintenance so that there aren't any issues, ecologically, structural, water quality wise, whatever it may be. They should be giving you annual reports. I assume that you get those, and if there were any deficiencies on there, I'm sure someone would let us know, but I don't recall seeing any, so that means everything's really good. Because usually they like to nitpick little things like leaves or something, and we're like, yeah, they just fall off the tree. You know? So, yeah, that's a good pick. In order for us to do our work, there's a lot of requirements. We have to have a minimum, service provider in the field has to have a minimum of a blue card, which is a responsible party certification for working and managing a stormwater system. And then we also have 8 gold card holders on staff for the design and assessments and inspections, and then corrective actions, recommendations for the big stuff, failures in the system that may occur. We must have an aquatic pesticide applicator license right there. So whoever is working in your community in terms of supervisory and technical support to the supervisor, they are licensed to apply the aquatic pesticides and herbicides needed and the nutrient management products needed to manage your water quality, to prevent an aesthetic degradation of cyanobacteria, algae, pond weeds, emergent growth vegetation, things that can succeed and grow and develop very rapidly in the aquatic realm. And I'll allude to that just a little bit more when we get into further into the presentation. Our accomplishments don't go unrecognized. We actually just won don't know what's up there. Yeah, 2025 Conservation Stewardship Award with the Conservation District. We won it back in 2023, and it's kind of like the Super Bowl in our industry. So it's good to be recognized. This is just elaborating on each one of those certifications that we have to have. I'm not going to belabor you with all that, but we have it all. We are locally based. Our professional service offices are in the Vineyards complex there on Route 9 in Lewis. Our door is always open if people need research or information on any environmental problem. We have a library there. We let people come in and use our facilities and whatnot. But typically we meet with your committees and your board members and your decision makers here in the clubhouse, on site, at different locations when needed. So that's been going on in perpetuity. For, was it almost 23 years now? 18 years, yeah. We're getting there. I started with the developer before everybody moved in. But so, yeah, it's been about 23 years for me. So we have our professional service division that is run by Greg Breeding. He's the manager of that division. And you will typically have one natural resource manager on site here with one or two laborers, technicians, I should say, that come in to conduct the routine maintenance and management. And then you have teams that come in to do the other higher end things, and aeration and fountain teams that come in to work on deficiencies that arise with fountains. So we'll get right into the meat and potatoes of your maintenance and management program for your wet ponds. And I want to get out a few things here for reference. Okay, so your community is comprised of wet ponds. Well, this clubhouse pond here is actually not part of your stormwater management system. This was an amenity built more for an ornamental purpose and to match in with your stormwater system, although it is managed and maintained the same as the others, and it does indeed receive heat flow from your rear lots that just heat flows across the land and goes into there. So it does have storage of some of the water that comes off these rear lots here. But stormwater wet ponds 1, 2, 3, and the clubhouse pond are what are managed, and then the coastline wetland areas, which I'll show you here. But educational outreach is always a part of this and is needed constantly. I work with Barbara mainly and the board members when I meet with them. But that does require on-site educational outreach and explaining different techniques and options and design parameters that we put together. So that's available whenever needed by the HOA. We also provide, as was mentioned earlier, a EnviroAlert system that proactively explains things that are going to be happening biologically, ecologically. For instance, in about beginning of April, mid-April, the planet turns yellow here. This is a real simple one, of course. So we send out an EnviroAlert because our phones ring off the hook when the earth turns yellow, and the ponds turn yellow, and your cars turn yellow. Well, that's pollen from our eastern red cedar and our loblolly pines, and our bayberries start releasing their pollen, so everything turns yellow. There's plant reproductive material that blows through the ambient, through the wind, deposits on everything because people think that we did something to pollute the water. And so we send these things out proactively to reduce the volume of calls and the different things to go on. I'll just show you some examples like what we're doing now. Your ponds have succeeded over time and filled in. So we're going to be coming and removing some of that accumulated material, mainly sediment. grass clippings. No one should be throwing anything into the ponds, into the storm drain inlets, into your rear lot swales. Clean your dog feces up. When it rains real hard, we had about a 3.5 to 4 inch rain. What was it, last week? A lot of material went into all the ponds, as you can see. Ponds are everywhere is turned brown again because of the active build out sites where the silts are running off. And so that's got to all settle out now. Gravity pulls it out and they settles into the bottom of the ponds. But we don't want to exasperate that and put nutrient into the water. So grass clippings and things should be, this is just examples of our environmentalists. There shouldn't be any weed and feeds going on up to the edge of the buffers or into the waterway or over drain inlets or on sidewalks and in the streets. Oftentimes we come in to do work and we see fertilizers laying all over the sidewalks and then everything. Well, we know there's going to be a big algae bloom in 5 to 7 days now because that is algae food in water. So buffering the buffers of the ponds is and structures and swales is important. So we do everything we can, picking up dog feces, collaborative goal setting, all these things. We reach out diligently to make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on. And then, of course, we provide service reports and updates, all kinds of communications on what services are provided, how, when, where, why, what products are used, proactive and reactive herbicide applications to the water column. See here. So it's all about maintaining the balance in your system. Do understand that your stormwater wet ponds are designed to capture your impervious surface water runoff and store that water. But we're cheating the entire process. Stormwater wet ponds are supposed to be full of green material, algae and plants and things that people don't like, big green monsters that everybody thinks is going to come and eat them. Okay, that is what detoxifies the nutrients and the bad things that go into the water and cleans the water biologically and ecologically, denatures the impurities and the petroleum products and breaks down the nutrients before that water leaves. But people can't take the aesthetic part of that. We want clean, clear looking water that reflects light, and you got your herons and your egrets and your finfish swimming around. We like what we like. I'm the same way. I live on a pond and I want it clean and clear because of human psychology. But do understand it is a bad perception or it's a bad perception to think that you won't have growth and development of certain aquatic vegetation from time to time that we control. Otherwise, your ponds will be forested over and full of pond weeds and algae and bacteria all the time. But we control that with products. So that's the purpose of the wet ponds, is to capture all your toxicity and store it. Again, you've got wet pond number 1, and then you have 3 different storm drain inlets. So this serves one particular watershed in the community, basically the northwest quadrant of the community. And you have stormwater pond 2, which is centrally located in the community. Yeah. I got confused. Sorry. Yeah. So this is showing you the actual structure where you drain it. These are your street drain inlets where the water comes down the street and drops into these, and then the water flows underground into the ponds. These stabilization areas and forebay areas are designed to capture the silts and sediments and store it there right away. So that's where we're going to be doing our work, removing that accumulative material. Your ponds are very shallow. This is your bench shelf, so that's 0 to 12 inches. So you got about 4 feet deep, maximum 4 to 4.5 feet deep. So they're very shallow systems. And then you have outfall structures where these ponds fill up. That water is then, it goes through a treatment train, goes to pond 3. And then from pond 3, when that fills up, the water is discharged out into the Herring Creek watershed. There's pond three, much larger system. Was another thing we had to do. Some of you may be wondering why, but we had to take all the trees off the slope. Remember that was done 3 years ago? You don't want the woody stem trees to grow on the structural component of the pond because over time they begin to topple. This is weak excavated soil put into place to hold water in an embankment, a dam. Well, rule number one, we've lost many a town and city because we let trees grow in the dam. If you let trees grow in the dam, the roots break up the structure over time. They drop all their leaf litter in the pond. They start falling in. And now you've got to rebuild that. So that was why the trees were removed. And then that was restabilized with a conservation seed mix of grasses and flowers and things. So that's why that project was done on pond three. We've also done some work with your outfalls. We had to clear the outfall pipes. There shouldn't be any trees growing over top of the pipes because over time that biomass may collapse the pipe or root intrusion begins to degrade the pipe. So that pipe run was cleared, and so was your outfall because that had treed over. That was done several years ago. And then we've got that pond five, or pond five in the southeast phase of the community. There's a smaller micro pool, wet pond. That one is very, very shallow relative to the others, 3 feet. That's 3 feet deep. That one we also had to restore and rebuild an outfall, or excuse me, a drain inlet pipe that had accreted, filled in with sediment, silt over time. Again, a lot of that was mainly due to poor silt sediment controls during the active build out. That particular time it was Dodge City and the regulations weren't really being followed how they should be because things were happening so fast, kind of like what's going on now. So much active build out going on, it's just hard to keep up with it all. Then you have a swale. You got a bioswale in the southwest corner of the community where the rear lot drainage going down this property borderline discharges out into the wetlands. So that's kept tree free and invasive vegetation free as well, that particular bioswale. Some of these things are hard to see unless you really go out there and look. They're there. If you want to know more about the structure and function of wet ponds and what they're really supposed to do and how they're supposed to look in terms of infrastructure, you can see all this on the EPA fact sheets. You can Google these, or the state of Delaware sediment erosion control program now has all these graphics that elaborates on performance criteria, all the science behind these. So that's all available as well. All of your ponds are stocked with the Gambesia holobrookii. That's the eastern mosquito fish, the native guppy that is larvivorous, and they feed exclusively on mosquito larvae and other insect larvae. They're found naturally in the tidal tributaries, so they're in Herring Creek by the billions anyway. And then we harvest those and we put them in the wet ponds so that you don't have mosquito breeding coming out of the wet ponds. None. There is no better. There is no better form of mosquito control biologically than that. We do provide larvicide applications to wetlands if there's a problem on your forest fringe wetlands or your salt marsh wetlands. Mosquitoes were out of control, but the state of Delaware does that anyway. We have one of the best mosquito control programs on planet Earth here in Delaware because we are the lowest in elevation and we're dominated with wetlands. And before that program in the 30s and 40s and 50s, you couldn't even go out, like they couldn't have little league games and stuff because mosquitoes were so bad you couldn't do outdoor activities. So we have a model program for controlling mosquitoes. It's nothing like it used to be in terms of mosquitoes from when I was a kid until now. And then before that was even worse. But anyway, we cover your mosquitoes in the wet ponds. Whenever we see deficiencies in the system over time, your fabrics degrade, structural components break down, crack, your outfalls might crack, or geotextile fabric only has a shelf life of 15 years and it breaks down. So then when we find something wrong, then we report it. Muskrats are a problem. I'm getting ahead of myself. If they burrow into your embankments and cause structural integrity problems, then we got to trap those out. We don't want to. We don't want to harm anything. I'll give that disclosure right now, but it is the career that we chose. And so we have to do these things to keep the structural parts and everything in balance. So this is just showing you different corrective actions that we do to rebuild these structures after they fail over time. You can see the one on the left is dilapidated and completely filled in. So we come in and rebuild that. Aquatic vegetation control is done with different types of products. The products that we put into your pond are EPA registered aquatic pesticides and herbicides. We are a steward of the Water Corporation through CPRO. So we focus primarily on using the most advanced technology that exists, and CPRO dominates that industry. So proactively, we put nutrient sequestering products in your pond to grab all the phosphorus that may have run into the ponds over the course of the winter. The phosphorus is a proactive algae control method. So if we take away the phosphorus, which is the most limiting factor in food for algae growth, why then we reduce the frequency and duration of algae bloom. And that saves you on putting heavy metal copper product into the ponds to control algae, chelated copper, not toxic form. And the other thing that we put in there is fluorine, the Sonar One product, in order to prevent pond weeds. Your ponds are very shallow, so hydrilla, sago pondweed, curly pondweed. There's 40 to 50 different types of non-emergent vegetation that are vascular plants that grow from the bottom to the top and can fill your ponds in like salad bowls very rapidly over time. And then you've got a eutrophic organic mess. And so we put the Sonar in there so that that doesn't happen. These products do have no detriment to fish and wildlife, humans, your dog, the animals. These are fishery management products. So all of your ponds are managed as fisheries. They all have fish in them, not just the ones that we stock. In fact, I don't know if you allow fishing in here or not, but you do. Yeah, I saw some people coming in to go fishing this morning. I was jealous because I got my pole in the car. If I could have time, I'd show you what I caught yesterday. But anyway, that's after this. Let's see. Yeah, so then reactively, when you have an algae bloom or something that occurs, a cyanobacteria bloom, you get green paint effect with all the little wee beastie micro cyanophytes growing out of control in late summer. We've got to come in and treat that. We have products allocated in your budget for that if and when needed. We already talked about the structural and functional. Some other things, this feeding animals is mistaken kindness. I know we've always had a goose issue here. So feeding them will automatically domesticate them and they will imprint, they will never leave. So please do not feed any animals. And then there's byproduct or there's by problems. If you feed them, then fox and raccoons and other animals run through and start feeding on that material. So you don't want to feed anything. The muskrats that I told you about, when we see these burrows active around the embankments, then we've got to take action. You can't stop them from coming in. They come all the time from the salt marsh. They're part of the ecosystem. They're order rodentia. So they come in by the hundreds. If they're only a problem if they start burrowing. Your fountains, we manage and maintain those. Fountains are oil-cooled, electrically driven motors in water outside with 142 functional components. If any functional component, a GFI breaker, a control breaker, an amp meter, a capacitor, a muskrat nicks the rubber cable, or a bearing goes bad, there's so many things that can happen. Lightning can come through and trip all your breakers. When the fountains go down, we encourage someone to report that to the community liaison, whatever your process is. And then someone from property management where the liaison will let us know, and we come and do the diagnosis and reinstate it. Sometimes it's easy. It's just a trip breaker. We got to trip the breaker back. Sometimes it's very difficult, like a nick in a cable from a muskrat, where now we got to take the whole thing out and go down the cable inch by inch and find, oh, it's right here, halfway out in the middle of the pond. Then you got to splice that or possibly replace a cable. The motors have to be rebuilt every 24 operating months to change out the oil rings, seals, gaskets, and bearings. So this managing fountains is not easy. I don't want to bash them too bad because I manage them and maintain them for a living, so that's important. But if the fountain goes down, there is no ecological threat. Fountains do not do anything to manage your water quality. I know people think they do. There's the wives' tales, but they don't. What controls the aerobic capacity of water is the temperature of the water. That fountain doesn't change the aerobic capacity. If the water is 90 degrees in the middle of August, that fountain's not putting any oxygen into that pond. It's being extruded out by heat. So I don't want to get too much into that now, but do understand if the fountain is down, there's no ecological threat. Some people think that all the fish are going to die. You know, I'm sensationalizing a little bit now, but sometimes that's literal. You know, people think that the world's going to end, the fountain's down. Oh my God. Just let us know, we'll fix it. Here, just different things about fountains. That's what they look like inside. So you can see fixing them is not easy if indeed something goes wrong. The little drop of water gets in there on that copper winding, the whole system's done. We got to take it apart, put solvent on it, try to dry it out if it can be salvaged, if the seal goes bad. Different products we use, which I elaborated on that pretty good. Fish and Wildlife, this is probably the last management unit, and then host questions or whatever. We got two things really in here to manage. That's muskrats, which we're on top of all the time. If you're walking around the pond, walking your dog, or you notice a hole in common ground that maybe we didn't pick up on because we're not searching the whole neighborhood, let us know and we'll investigate and determine whether that is a muskrat lead. So we could take care of that. And the other one is geese. I'm going to be brief on geese because I could spend the rest of the day talking about how to manage geese. Rule number one, don't feed them. We have two populations, and these are rules of thumb, dates and times. So try to hold all this together if you don't mind. From March 1 to October 1, we're in that time frame now. The migratory birds are gone. Now what we have here are resident birds. The resident birds have been determined by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the state of Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife as invasive. They are invasive now. We have too many. It's our fault, partly my fault. I raised geese as a kid because I love them, and now I control them for a living, so it's kind of weird. And you kept them, and they reproduce, and now they're generations. They're here, and they reproduce locally. So right now they're in their reproductive mode. From March 1 to about mid-July, they are paired up. And they are beginning to courtship and mate, and now they're going to be starting to make their nests. Do we addle here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we addle here. Okay. So during that period, to prevent on-site reproduction, birth control, it is extremely important that we addle the eggs in any of the nests. We've been doing that for quite some time here, I believe. Or we just start? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
New year, new time.
Yeah. So here's how that works. Typically, the nesting doesn't occur around the pond in the buffers. It occurs on the fringes or under your deck or under a shrub or along the wetland line. So we rely on the community to tell us where the nest is. If we find them on the pond when we're working around the pond, fine. We know they're there. We deal with the process and we go ahead and addle the eggs record the data, do everything we have to do under the permit. You have a permit for this. But we need the community to give us locations of the nest so that we can come special duty and do that addling. It's all part of your program. There's no additional charges or costs for any of this. If you tell us where the nests are, okay, because we can't have environmental scientists walking the neighborhood all day long looking for nests. We'd have to, that would, we don't want to get into your capital reserve or whatever. So it's important that you do indeed let us know through the liaison process and property management where those nests are. We come and handle those. So October 1 to March 1 is when the resident birds come back, or the migratory birds come back. The resident birds come out of their reproductive mode and they're molt. In July and August, they lose their feathers, their flight feathers, to regrow new ones, and they can't fly away and they can't leave. So the goslings that may have been born here, plus the parents, are here, but then the migratory birds come in and they all start mixing and they change their biology and start doing local migrations all around from community to community, field to field. And at that time, it's important to have the monofilament grid systems across to non-lethally stress deter them out. The UV reflection off of the cords, the avian eye sees UV reflection. So that's like light grids, and that'll shoo them away. And if they touch down at night, we have these set 12 inches above the permanent pool elevation. So they contact the 80-pound test line and it spooks them and they'll fly away and go away. The grids have no impact after March 1 because the biology changes. And the geese are sessile, more sessile, and paired up and mating, and they're imprinted. So those lines don't matter anymore. They don't have to have that big home range expanse to move and fly around where these lines get in their way. Okay. So that's basically the no-brainers are the lines from October 1 to March 1 and the addling from March 1 until their reproductive time is over about June. There are more advanced methods of removing the geese. I'm only going to mention them. I'm not trying to, I got to give that disclosure again, because this is a sensitive issue based on how you feel personally in human psychology part of this. We can physically remove them, corral them and remove them if your resident population gets too big. You have a process and program for that, and you get a deprivation permit, and it's permitted through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the state of Delaware, if indeed that. But that would be a topic of discussion for another time. So anyway, that's the fish and wildlife management component there. This environmental alert with the goose control information on it is really important to learn more about that, and it shows you graphically. It reinforces everything that I just said. So the grids, that's what the nests look like if you're a hiker or a biker or environmental committee person or a walker, and you want to help out by looking for the nests. And by all means, that's what they look like. Soon, you'll only see one of the pair. When you see one single goose walking around, that lets you know that there's a goose on a nest somewhere. The reason why is they're monogamous. They mate for life, and it's very rare that you'll see one goose. Because if their mate dies, then they'll go find another mate and get married. Sometimes you might see three. I don't know what they're up to. And then, they very rare do they get divorced, change around. So that helps to show, like I said, we can remove them if need be. So basically, we take the science, policies, and the regulations, and we put it together to make a management plan, which is what that flow chart is that I just showed you. These are the different things that we have to control in your ponds, all the different types of vegetation, pond weeds, emerging growth vegetation, floating, submerged rooted aquatic, bacterias, algae. Let's see. that's more so eroded. Anyway, if I may, I could pose questions.
I'm gonna ask you to do one more thing.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about Phragmites
Oh, yeah.
that you guys have dealt with over the last number of years.
Sure, yeah. So on your salt marsh wetlands that are on the southern border of the community, buffering your uplands to the channel of Herring Creek, you have what's called a Spartina alterniflora dominated salt marsh that has, over the course of history, been invaded by Phragmites australis, the tall common reed. That tall common reed is not a native beneficial plant. It's an exotic invasive plant. It's now in all 50 states. And even in Alaska, it's now a controlled plant. That is a rhizome-based plant, so it runs underground with two lateral root systems, one about 9 inches under, the other one's about 5 feet down. It gets really biomassive. Then the stems come up in the leaf tissue, and that increases in density and population over time. And those rhizomes release phenols that will kill off other plants, but then they'll overshadow the ground cover grasses, the beneficial grasses, and start stealing the resources from them and crowding them out. And then you have a fire fuel hazard. Phragmites is a very, very dense cellulose when it's dormant. And if that were to catch fire and wick, you forget it. You're not going to get that out. It's how Rehoboth Shores burnt down. They didn't control their Phragmites. They're still not. They didn't learn the first time. But anyway, you don't want that Phragmites catching fire. Then ecologically, it destroys everything. It takes away your view corridor, provides no habitat. I know some people will say, well, the blackbirds love it. They just sit in it. They don't nest in it or eat anything from it. It's a mistaken perception. But so we are in a program now of treating that systemically and then cutting in and then retreating. And this can take a number of years to get it under control and finally eradicated because of seed dispersal. The fact that the rhizomes are in water. So when the herbicides translocate down, they get diluted underwater in the rhizome, which can ruin things. And then if any little piece of that rhizome is non-impacted by the herbicide, well, then stems will grow off of that. So the plants reproduce sexually and asexually and keeping up with it. And you can only treat it once it's mature. It's another problem. You get to lose the battle when it works. Because the systemic salts that we apply to it, when it flowers in late July up to October, that salt has to bind to the sugar that's being made in the leaf and translocate it down to the rhizome, where it then disrupts the protein synthesis in the rhizome and starts killing it from the root up. The only way to get rid of that plant. There is no other way, period. You can cut it and burn it, do all these different things that everyone in the world's tried, and it'll come back hardier. So you have to treat it with a systemic herbicide first. And then we like to come in and prune it down and drop that material down so it forms detritus in the marsh, like a thatching or a mulching, and then allow those understory grasses, the Spartina patens and alterniflora, to regenerate, start filling in those voids, and then that starts helping us. So that program is going on now, and we'll be looking forward to seeing, late spring, how much efficacy we had with the applications and see how much comes up in the target zone.
And just to reinforce something I think you just said, the natural marsh grasses, we can expect some reoccurrence of those, but that needs to be checked periodically.
Yeah, we're going to have to monitor for that because the seed base is under it. Plants are there. They've just been oppressed by the polar vegetation above them, stealing sun and and releasing chemicals to oppress them. So the seeds are still there. There's viable root mass. So now that plant has been treated and gone over above it. Sometimes that successional growth of the plants that have been oppressed is very rapid. And we'll show up in the spring and go, whoa, man. Did we see? I'll be like, did we see this? No, it's just native growth. So we hope it's one of those situations. But to go out and replant the salt marsh would be just not cost effective. It would be too expensive. You would need thousands and thousands of plants, all at $250 a plug. You know, so that wouldn't be, just let nature scar that back over.
One of the examples, we had lots of, when I first came on board with Todd, we had all phragmites in that sort of inlet near the pier and everything. They treated those, they cut them down, we went, for many years. Yeah, we get a few sprigs, that's all that grows up. Now it's all natural grasses and makes
Yeah, same process. Yeah.
Took about 2 or 3 years, but it's very healthy growth there. Yeah, we see some primary using all Todd's crew and they kind of sprung it so the people out of the house won't really fast. Everyone look together.
Working well down to that. Harrington Drive, right?
Good. Yeah, we've,
The circle, yet back to the circle.
yeah, we're
Now it's grown.
outstanding. Good to hear that, then. Yeah, I'm looking forward to later in the spring to see, last year was the first year we did the entire, wetland because we were going in increments, like 20 feet, then 20 feet. And now we're in a situation where we were able to treat the, broad spectrum area. And so that should have had good efficacy, and we'll see. Thank you.
From the property line down to the ponds, what should the vegetation be like to hold it, when the stuff coming down? Do you just leave it?
So around each of the ponds, we have about a 10-foot no-mow zone called a buffer. And that's just all native plant strap, deep-rooted native beneficial plants that are anchoring and holding the soil together so that your pond doesn't rill and erode and fall apart. So that native beneficial vegetation is for structural integrity primarily, environmentally second. Some people like everything flush cut, like the Baywood Golf Course, right? Well, here, this isn't a golf course and you don't have irrigation there. You don't have all these different things, and Bermuda grass that's manicured with tons of fertilizer and everything. So that's your best friend in terms of structural integrity, is buffering the ponds. But from that cut line out of the buffer, that's completely up to the HOA and whatever you decide there. Now, typically and historically, that's just been a mowed unit, even though it's not really grass. It's not really, it's native plants that are being mowed. There are some grasses in there, but it's not like your lawn. So those are.
When there's no grass or it's just earth, you know what I mean?
Well, if it's just dirt and soil, a sustained community is one that doesn't have exposed soils. So if you've got just dirt and exposed soil, then there should be a soil test done to determine why, whether it's really acidic or was there a concrete there at one time? So is that deficient soil? And then whatever the soil test says, then you should amend that soil with growing media or whatever needs to be done in lime, overseed it, and then cover that with a straw jute fabric and reestablish turf. So there's a process for reestablishing turf in areas that are deficient and don't have ground cover. All your soil should be ground covered.
And we've done a number of pots, just where.
Yes, sir.
And at this point behind my house, and big way, Herring Reach. Close to the water. After the where I tree. Got nothing back in money. It's fair. I believe going down the street toward Steve's house, who's my neighbor. He pretty much has nothing left there. It's after the rain on Sunday night. Huge pools of water. it's almost like Heron Creek at this point. When will this supposed natural vegetation go back? Because there's nothing there now.
Well, the hydrology is because that is a wetland. And
Right.
so we had a full moon, a lunar tide. So the tides were 3 foot higher than normal. And then we had a 4-inch rain. So all wetlands are completely flooded.
Right.
So that's expected to be flooded diurnally, twice a day. Yeah, that's what wetlands are, and that's what they do. They're always wet. The water is always going to be there. We're anticipating that late spring, once things start to grow and germinate, the vegetation will start colonizing in that area. Our target species is only Phragmites. We didn't treat or kill or harm any other vegetation. So
Well, there's nothing there. It's totally.
I'll have to go look and see, but yeah, I would expect something will begin to grow there
Yeah.
this spring. All right.
Hey guys, if you have questions or comments, would you please speak up? We do have owners that are online. They can hear Todd perfectly, but they don't always hear the questions or the comments.
Marty? I live next door to Bob with the wetland behind me and nothing's there. That stuff in the water is rising. Oh, we have to flooding.
You'll always, yeah, you live on a, Yeah.
Ever, you know.
yeah, the answer is yes. You are threatened by flooding because you live on an intertidal oceanic driven wetland. That's- No, the Phragmites control program has nothing to do with hydrology or tidal inflow or flooding at all. It doesn't have any bearing on hydrology. Now, that would be a misperception.
Hi, I was just wondering, do you also have a contract with Windswift, the neighborhood next to us?
I'm not at liberty to talk about other places. Yeah.
Just because their outflow comes through ours and then ends up behind my house, so I was just kind of like.
No, their outfall goes into the cove on Heron Creek. I do, but I'm
Yeah.
not, yeah. I do have maintenance and management on that pond. But it's in active build out. I can't control all this silt and sediment. Yeah, but I usually don't talk about other communities because they get mad. Gave you the right to talk about our community. There's a coordinated effort, but their outfall goes directly into your community pond. And that's a issue with, the regulators, and that's the way it's set up. So every time there's a big rain event, and that water gets tainted by the fine silt, your pond takes a hit. But it doesn't come in here.
It doesn't, we live right along Heron Creek.
Right.
Because I'm there.
No, I understand what you're getting at, but yeah, that's a hot topic.
The neighborhoods that we go through, they do have nice wildflowers growing around their retention ponds. Is that like a higher cost to get?
Well, you have to install them. Yeah, you have to seed them in and go through a program to enhance the buffers. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then you can't fertilize there's a lot to that. That would be something we could sit down and discuss, but there's a lot to that.
We have put this, we have planted before and they just, we planted them. So we're gonna deal with black-eyed Susan. Some of them take, some of them don't, sort of, instead, it's.
Thank you.
Fox. You watch these marshmen, and there are foxes. So fox then back into the marshlands. Is that beneficial or?
It's not beneficial. No. The red fox, the European red fox that we have dominating our area here, that's an invasive species. People don't know that. They're not from here. They were brought here by the DuPonts in the 30s for fox hunting, and then they ran the whole world. And then, now they're everywhere. That's not necessarily beneficial because now our bobwhite quail is extinct. Our plovers, all of our ground cover birds are in peril because they eat everything. No more rabbits around. I'm sorry.
Who would handle that? You folks.
We are licensed to trap and remove fox, but not necessarily. It depends on who has the jurisdiction of that wetland.
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
it's beyond jurisdiction.
Yeah, then we wouldn't be able to do anything in that situation. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You're fishermen, being a fisherman, it interests me. I noticed especially post-COVID period, the bass population in all the lakes has declined significantly inside main owners. And quite to attribute, some of it was kids from outside the community. Lack of better term, raiding. It's very good. And some difficulty making sure they stand. Because they keep, we're catch and release. And, but it's pretty hard to do a test run around lanes. And there's been a decline, seemingly bluegill population as well, which is what responsible. What are your thoughts about? I even looked at some of the restocking companies, at least two that Delaware is part of their territory. It's not cheap to restock. Two of my grandchildren want to catch bass. It's kind of personal to me.
Sure.
And I try to teach them responsible fishing. So I wonder what your thoughts are on maintaining the ponds. Fairly healthy state. For some reason, bass declining. So what is our alternative here aside from having somebody pay the state commit or having state commit? What relation is left to, I can see where this could get involved. But I'm wondering your thoughts might be as far as neutral being minor. Is this a cycling to? I know after the pond major, the last three big one, was trained. I was talking to at least one other person. He said it was noticeable. Asked by it, and I don't think it's recovered because I went back to do some silly fish. And we used to pull for here. So actually collect several fish. I don't think it's reasonable. One of them, years.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, so we haven't stocked any of the ponds ourselves yet. But then we do put together stocking programs with ratio of buck bass to breeder bass and feeder fish, pumpkin seed sunfish, white crappie, and the bullhead minnows to provide the feeder stock for them. But over the course of time, from fishermen, from herons and egrets, your main culprit of removing your predatory fish, because the ponds are so small, are the herons, the great blue herons.
He's a king of his ponds.
Well, they're migratory, so yeah, they will kill the large ones too, though, without eating them, they'll kill them. Oh yeah, they'll stab and kill them. Yeah, no, not the real big ones, they can't. But anyway, yeah, you could go into a restocking program, the ones that are interconnected, and so yeah, we haven't done anything to remove any fish. Everything we do is fishery friendly, but monitoring those that come in should be catch and release only. Tackle in, tackle out, trash in, trash out, not leaving. And a bass that might be foul hook or something. So yeah, managing your fishery that way on beach harvesting and whatnot. Restocking is about the only way to regenerate that population.
Would you consider experiencing? Let's.
Yeah, we have a ratio that we put together, the amount of, breeder bass and pink bass versus the feeder fish. And yeah, we can do all that if we need to.
There were a couple more questions.
Yeah, I live on Reach, where you at? Is that pond two? For the outfall area?
That's 3.
Three.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be addressing that? Because going rain, my backyard flood. There are stones there. But that would stop.
This is,
Addressing what? I don't know what you mean. So behind, I think,
Coming into my yard,
well, we can't stop the wetlands from flooding in. We can't.
and it's not wetland, it's the other, well. That pond. When it rains, I'll show you.
We'll have to go take a look at it.
you've done, you're in that area where it does, when it gets very rain, it's also on through and onto these down there, it's got the,
You're gonna start cutting mine.
We could, we'll have to reconstruct the outfall. We'll have to rebuild it. Yeah, I didn't put it in. We'd have to rebuild the outfall.
Are our ponds lined?
No.
Okay. And I didn't mention it. I'm sure-
To the best of my knowledge, I'd have to look at the plan. I don't think
asked
they,
you.
yeah,
Or you've been here since the beginning.
yeah. To the best of my knowledge, they're not.
But, as part of the remediation of the outfalls, they're gonna need to pump it down and dewater, right?
Oh, yeah, your ponds are gonna be dewatered for us to do our work. That's
I
correct.
I don't know, I mentioned it, I don't know that you mentioned it, but I want everybody to know, as they move from pond to pond, they're gonna have to pump that water down in order to pull the riprap, pull the silt out, and then put everything back.
That's right.
So just, it may go to the fish, impact on fishing.
Yeah.
As the pond levels go down. We did that a couple of years ago, pond 3. But just be aware of it.
Yeah, they don't take it, I was on 5 minutes, on 5, they did take all the way down, but on 3 always had one of the deepest part, where was, because that doesn't have anything to do with the inlets or outflows. But yeah, they're going to be dewatered, but there'll be some, there's permits we have to sign. There looks some ponds, yes, areas. it's like-
Yeah, we'll leave a permanent pool of about 30 inches of water in the deepest part so that those fish can sustain themselves. And then once we get a rain event, the ponds fill themselves back up to redistribute themselves. But in order to win the war, you got to lose some battles here. And aesthetically, it's not going to look pretty because you'll be looking at the bottom of the pond, the exposed soil, till we get this work done. But there is no other way to do it. You have to dewater the pond in order. You can't excavate soil in water and just slide out of your. But
If you're a bird watcher, you head onto your this, and about 5 to 6 new birds. They bring their
yes, sir.
The whole pond, right? Pond, national here.
Yeah.
Is that, has any sprinkler, we know if there's any sprinkler underneath that? Oh, it was just dug and just let.
No, I believe it's also artificially filled, right, with your irrigation lead. You got an irrigation lead that pumps water into it. So that in the summer it'll, but no, there's, all your ponds are influenced by groundwater
Sure, sure.
because you're right at sea level here. And so when the groundwater elevations are very high, that holds the water into the ponds better. But as you remember last summer, that was the worst drought in recorded history. So all the ponds in the county drew down. I'm not sure, I can't recall how much that one drew down.
The last 2 rains we had.
It fills the bank. Yeah.
And it's overflow gone, so they just fixed that. You can see it right now.
Yeah, so they're subject to environmental conditions and pond drawdown ecologically is a natural process. It doesn't necessarily harm the fishery because the fish adapt, but it helps when the ponds are full.
It's more temperature, right? I mean, that fish, you're saying.
Yeah, in the summer when that water gets up to 85, 90 degrees, that's lethal. that's lethal. If they can't find cold water stratification at the bottom, they could succumb and die off.
Any more questions? We have another portion of our meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
Good seeing everyone.
Available on our website. The video, we can, go set it right on the meeting. Yeah. All righty. We have open discussion, but I have, Bill, you wanted to start?
Yes, we held off on the investment committee report to the end because James and I have been in deep discussions with the accountant firm that does our taxes, and also we'll be doing our audit to get an understanding of impacts of the radical changes in the economy. So at this time, I'd like to, James, want to stand up? James Berry, the chair of the investment committee.
Well, basically, we just put in, just recognize all of your.
Hey, James, can I bring you up front closer here? I know you hate that aside too much.
This is not fancy. Tariffs going in. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So with all these things, businesses are sitting, CEOs sitting on their hands. They don't know what to do. It's hurting businesses, it's hurting the economy. Rapidly going in and just helter-skelter firing people in the federal governments has got a long-term implication, which may hurt the economy. So I put together a report and with the committee's help, and we just recognized everything that's going on, and we're taking a cautious approach, I would say.
Yes.
And we're watching the market, and April 2nd is going to be a critical day. We don't know what's going to happen, what the president is going to do. If we end up in a tariff war, all bets are off. All the economists are worried about that. They've raised we've gone from an economy that's moving and hitting on all cylinders to now all economists saying that there is a fair chance of a recession. And quite a few economists now putting it at 50-50. It all depends on what happens with these tariffs. That's the critical short-term key to worry about. Long-term, there are some other problems, which I won't get into right away because I could spend a half an hour doing that. Short-term, April 2nd, let's pray that he does not go crazy with these tariffs and start a tariff war with the other countries. I mean, hitting specific tariffs because they're doing something unfair and a specific injury, right. But going across the board tariffs and hitting our allies, that could really produce a negative effect on our economy. If we have a tariff war and we go back and forth, if you're a student of history, in the 1930s, we had the tariff. We had some big tariffs, smooth Harley tariffs. And that took us from a recession into a depression. That was one of the key contributors. It wasn't the only one. One of the key contributors that took us from a recession into a depression. So I am worried about that. I'm watching it. And that's basically what we talked about to the committee.
And what we did as a board is we reduced our exposure to equities from 30% to 20%. So the bulk of our money, we're earning 4% in money markets. So we're safe. All right, we're as safe as we can be unless the federal government is. We're good. And you saw, I gave you a report of how much money we've been earning money. We're doing well. We're prepared for the future. The big expense will be when we have to tear up the roads. You know, we're talking around 100,000. And we would do it in sections off season, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But I thought it was important to let the community know that our funds are well managed. And we're with Schwab, and we're working well with PCAM, and we're as good as we can be.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, let me go, Elizabeth. Yeah.
Make sure you guys speak up, because we'll have to repeat them. Sorry.
Joe Minnick, I'm down on Gary Beach.
Mhm.
And the question concerns the common area behind us with all the trees. We have a huge amount of debris that's back there and tree debris. And when the trees that were removed and were cut down, the debris that was put back there, I don't know if any of it came from the ponds. But what struck me is particularly what just happened up in Milford. Somebody drops a spark back there, that whole place is going up in flames. There is piles of tree limbs piled up in the back there. And Milford said, I'm concerned. And where the consumer came, said it's on the north to Milford, they had a brush fire up there that burned quite a few acres out of some Milford. When I saw them working on the rock area, that big backhoe they have there, it's one of those rocks there's just.
What's your address?
23698, plot 111.
23698.
And it's fire. I don't know if it's coming.
Yep. Yep.
But a lot of it show up after we did the tree trimmings. You know, the trees were just cut down and left laying there.
Okay.
So they're now tinder.
It's Heron Reach.
That's Heron Reach.
Yeah,
But those, just, and what, are you talking about the trees that were taken down a couple of years ago? That was intentional.
I'm not understanding.
Yeah.
That's now tinder per fire. That has gotten so dry back there with the ground. And again, with the other things that are left, in cases 5 and 6 feet.
Okay.
That's that you want to have once it stops.
Okay.
You also have it in my house.
You do too, yeah.
2369.
Yeah, I know here. All right, yes.
I have one question about the HOAs. Seems first 4 years of lived here, they never went up. All of a sudden, over the last 3 years, they've gone up $20 water, $20 water, and now they're up $30 water. Now, the next time we're due to analyze the budget, and you want to put an increase into the dues, can we have a one-page summary of why the dues are going up? What are the costs that increase the dues for the upcoming year? Reading the financials the way they are,
Okay,
it's not apparent.
that's clear. Okay.
All right,
Mhm.
that would be very helpful.
Mhm.
Because I'm looking at these things, and I'm certified up, and I'm just looking at them, and I can't figure out why the dues are going up every year.
So we discussed that at each budget meeting. When I too, I'm a retired CPA, certified government financial manager, among other certifications. And we have a lengthy budget process. But number one, when we came on board, Barb and I, 5 years ago, we had a deficit
Yeah, nobody had taken an increase.
because no one raised the fees. Now, the initial year, we had to raise the fees to cover our costs. The reason being, our contracts, if you all recall, we had a low inflation period. We had, I guess, 3 to 4 years where inflation was less than 3%, 2%. So we had these contracts, the 3-year periods, no increases. Now, remember what happened with inflation all of a sudden. Bang. All right, we had contractors say, we can't pay our people because our contract's too low. They went for 3 years anticipating the low inflation. But now their labor costs and material costs went up. And some of the contractors were going to bail. I said, yes, if you bail, we will sue you for the difference in cost to go to the next one. I'm gonna jump in here and Bill's citing the reason, justification for past increases. I think what you're asking us for is for future changes. We give you a one-page, and we'll try to do that, a one-page itemized summary, which would identify increases as well as decreases programmatically that results in the bottom line. Is that what you're asking us for?
That's all. Did you, that would be, show the treasure. I mean, like,
Bill,
you can see why this is making companies concerned.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's just a blanket when you see the development. Thank God, it's. Here.
And we try to communicate all that in advance, but we'll follow up on your point.
I think it's good, yeah, to have a summary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do that. Anybody else? Oh,
One.
yes, Steve.
Why is it only one per house? Because you're like that.
I don't know. It's in our bylaws and our CC, it's by the bylaws. It's one house, one vote per, I feel the same way. There's two of us and we both, but that's in our, and we have definitely have to.
It's not true.
No, it's true. And yeah, I get you because I feel the same way. Sometimes the opinions are not the same, but yeah, it's in our bylaws.
Thank you.
How are your brackets doing?
Everybody's bad, yep. All right. Anybody else? Great. Okay, then I will call the meeting at exactly 11:15 on time. Thank you so much.